it was a situation coming into, I think, my 4th year, obviously to sign the big extension. So I was excited about that, becoming the point guard of the future. And then I think when the Lakers made the trade for Pau Gasol, that sent like a shockwave throughout the NBA, and especially in the West. I feel like a lot of teams felt like, oh, like we got to step it up. Like the Lakers have now become the team of contention. And I felt like between that and obviously the last 2 years of us, losing to Miami, and then obviously the first round exit in Golden State, they started kind of looking at it like, okay, who can we add? And obviously being one of the younger, on the cusp of an all-star type player, I become the trade asset.
Yeah.
Right. And I was with, I think, CAA at the time. And I know Jeff Schwartz was orchestrating this from behind the scenes. I moved to Jeff later on, so I got more side information. But J Kidd determined that this was a place that he wanted to be and felt like he could help them, over the hump at that point in time. Now, how the whole situation was handled, I felt like it could have been handled a lot better.
Sure.
But at this point in time, I think I went out. It was November, December. We were first in the West. I think we got off to a great start. I hurt my ankle, and then I think I missed the next 2 months. And this wave of information of like, okay, J Kidd's headed to Dallas. From a business standpoint, I get it. He's J Kidd,
Sure.
right? I mean, but just the amount of time that it took to get this deal done. Now, there was a lot of moving parts. We had to throw in guys that were retired.
Shout out to Keith Van Horn.
You know what I mean? To come back and be a part of this.
Yeah.
And the whole part of like, and I get it from a team standpoint, but it was the whole point of like, okay, we're not trying to trade you. The whole world's saying that you are trying to trade me.
Sure.
Like it's on SportsCenter on a daily basis for the next 2 months.
Yeah.
And then obviously we go through a trade, and then we have a player nix the trade, and then that makes it kind of really awkward in a sense. And this whole time I'm trying to rehab just to get back on the court.
Yeah.
And it just turned out to be more of a circus that I felt like it needed to be. And then obviously it goes through finally. And then I get the jersey and do good things.
Yeah, you want to become an all-star, and then eventually you find your way back.
Yeah.
To Dallas. Do you real quick? Do you or Jason Kidd ever talk about that?
No, it was honestly what makes it even more weird is when I got to Jersey, I was looking for a place to live. I ended up taking his place.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So ended up working out. And no, there was never any ill will. Obviously,
Sure.
I mean, it speaks to the level of. I mean, the 2 times that I was traded were traded for generational type players.
Yeah.
Jason Kidd and Darren Williams. So, I mean, obviously I must be doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, look, and Devin told a lot of it, but that it took like 2 or 3 tries to get that trade done. And just to show, that was like at the start of when trade season and trade coverage just became a massive part of my job. So in 2008, Devin is exactly right. The chatter about a Jason Kidd to Dallas trade, it started in November or December. It was clear the Nets were going in a bad direction. Jason Kidd wanted out. He wanted to come to Dallas. It was a nonstop discussion. So that all happened. The All-Star game was before the trade deadline at that point. Remember, the league recently has changed that over the last few years to put the trade deadline after All-Star weekend, because that trade discussion absolutely dominated All-Star weekend. It overshadowed the whole weekend, and the trade was such a big deal. I told ESPN, let me stay home. Let me skip the All-Star game. Don't make me go to New Orleans. I will do a better job covering that trade if I can sit in my dungeon at home and just make calls like I'm doing today instead of being in studio with you guys. If I can just be in my dungeon and not have to be running around covering the All-Star game, I will do such a better job covering this trade. ESPN, listen to me. That is exactly how it happened, because that trade fell apart and came back to life literally 2 or 3 times. And all I did that whole All-Star weekend was write trade updates. I remember Jason Kidd and Dirk got sent to an NBA Cares event in New Orleans together. That caused a big hoopla. And finally, by the time that All-Star weekend was over, the Mavs and the Nets had a deal that the league was willing to approve because, you know, there was the situation where Devin George, you know, he didn't have a full no trade clause, but he was what you call a 1-year bird, a player on a 1-year contract signed with the team he played with the previous season. So Devin George had the ability to block that trade, and he initially did. And I remember all the consternation that caused. So, I mean, that trade was an absolute roller coaster and one of the more unforgettable chapters that I've had covering the Mavericks of Dallas.
So you telling me Devin George swung the history of the Mavericks potentially winning or not winning a championship is what we're saying here?
I mean, one of the hurdles. There were other hurdles, but that, you know, like you guys mentioned, you had to bring Keith Van Horn into the trade as a retired player who had to be signed and traded by Dallas in that deal. Jerry Stackhouse did say something publicly about the Nets are just going to waive me and I'm going to re-sign here. That was an obstacle they had to get over. I mean, that trade was a movie in itself. It literally took 2, 3, 4 tries to finally get a trade construction that the league would approve.
We all silly like the mayor.